Okay, let's unpack this. I mean, think about physics for a second. When you have two energy waves and they're completely out of sync, they literally cancel each other out, right?
Right, yeah, destructive interference.
Exactly, destructive interference. And, well, think about your daily life, like just for a second. The endless notifications on your phone, the competing demands from, work and family, just the underlying hum of modern stress.
It's a lot.
It is. Your attention is constantly being canceled out by that exact same destructive interference.
Mm-hmm.
You're being pulled in 100 different directions, and the result is just, exhaustion.
Absolutely.
But what if there was, like a physical geometric tool designed specifically to force your scattered intentions back into strict coherence?
It's a highly compelling proposition, honestly, because, we live in an era where sustained focus is arguably our most depleted resource.
Oh, for sure.
And therefore, it's our most valuable one. And what we're looking at today in this deep dive is a framework that attempts to solve that exact problem. We're exploring the core mechanics of crystal grids.
Which is so much more than just the aesthetic, right?
Exactly. Moving far beyond the aesthetic. We're looking past those perfectly arranged, highly photogenic stones you might see while scrolling through social media. We want to examine how ancient traditions actually intersect with the physics of resonance.
Because that visual really is everywhere right now, isn't it? Like you see these stunning geometric patterns of crystals sitting on someone's coffee table, and it just looks so intentional.
It really does.
It looks like whoever built it has their entire life figured out.
Yeah.
But the mission of our deep dive today is to demystify that arrangement. We're pulling apart the concepts from this guide. Crystal grids, a guide to sacred geometry and manifestation.
Right.
We want to understand the why and the how, like how intention geometry and vibrational energy supposedly combine to create these tools. Because if you're just using them as an expensive home decor trend,
you're completely missing the underlying mechanics.
Yeah.
And the dividing line between, an internet aesthetic and a genuine energetic practice, it really comes down to structure. This framework is an exploration of traditions that span millennia.
Wow, millennia.
Oh, yeah. We're talking about the sacred proportions used in ancient Egyptian temples, right alongside the intricate, intentional mandala arrangements created by Tibetan monks.
Right. They aren't just arbitrary shapes.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
They are built on the principles of how energy moves, how it resonates, and crucially, how it can be directed.
But, okay, if we're dealing with all these competing frequencies, like different stones, different sizes, different colors, how do they not just cancel each other out?
That's the big question.
Right. Because if you buy a bunch of beautiful stones and just, toss them into a decorative bowl on your desk, aren't you just creating more of that destructive interference? There has to be a mechanism that forces them into alignment.
That is the crucial distinction right there. Because a bowl of loose crystals is, energetically speaking, chaos.
Total chaos.
Every single stone carries its own unique vibrational frequency based on its mineral composition, its molecular structure. So when you just pile them together, those frequencies clash.
They're just bumping into each other.
Exactly. But a crystal grid is a conscious arrangement positioned on a base that follows sacred geometric patterns. And that geometry is the mechanism that forces alignment.
Okay, so it structures the chaos.
Yes. In physics, we call this coherence. When energy waves are coherent, when they're aligned in phase with one another, they don't cancel each other out. They actually synthesize, strengthen, and amplify one another.
Oh, I love that. So if the bowl of loose crystals is like a room full of incredibly talented singers, all belting out completely different songs at the exact same time.
Which is just awful noise.
Right, which is just noise. Then placing those same crystals onto a sacred geometry grid is like handing out sheet music.
Oh, that's a perfect way to put it.
Suddenly, everyone knows their parts.
Yeah.
They understand the rhythm and they harmonize perfectly.
What's fascinating here is how seamlessly that musical metaphor translates to the actual metaphysical principles. The sacred geometry literally is the sheet music.
Oh.
It acts as the mathematical blueprint that routes the individual vibrations of the stones into a unified synergistic field. And these geometric patterns, they aren't just random doodles.
Right, they're everywhere.
Exactly. They are foundational shapes found everywhere in the natural world, from the hexagonal structure of honeycombs to the spiral arms of galaxies.
That's so wild to think about. And the text details some very specific geometric sheet music you could use depending on what you're trying to achieve.
Right.
For instance, there's the Flower of Life, which is this beautifully complex overlapping circle design. It looks almost like like a hexagonal floral pattern.
Mm.
And the text says it represents unity and infinite connection.
Yes, the flower of life is often considered the master pattern because it visually represents how all things are woven together from the same source. So it's considered excellent for grids aimed at universal harmony, healing, or overarching spiritual growth. But if your goal is more targeted, you might look at the seed of life.
And that one is simpler, right?
Much simpler. It's made of just 7 interlocking circles. And those 7 circles symbolize the 7 days of creation, representing raw potential and new beginnings.
So that would be for, like, starting something fresh.
Exactly. Therefore, it's the ideal geometric base for a manifestation grid where you're really trying to bring something entirely new into your reality.
Got it. I also noticed Metatron's cube heavily referenced as a foundational grid base.
Yeah.
And that one always looks so incredibly intricate to me.
It is. It's very complex.
The material mentions that it contains all 5 platonic solids, and that's why it promotes balance and protection. But wait, before we move on, first, someone who hasn't taken a geometry class in like a decade, what actually are the platonic solids?
That's a very fair question.
And why does having all 5 matter for a grid's energy?
It is a great question because the term gets thrown around a lot without any real explanation. So a platonic solid is a 3D shape where every single face is the exact same regular polygon and the same number of faces meet at every vertex.
Okay.
There are only 5 that exist in mathematics: the tetrahedron, the hexahedron, which is just a cube, the octahedron, the dodecahedron, and the icosahedron.
Wow. Okay. That's a mouthful.
It is. But ancient philosophers like Plato believed these 5 precise shapes were the fundamental building blocks of physical matter. They corresponded to fire, earth, air, spirit, and water.
Oh, I see.
So when Metatron's cube incorporates all 5, it is geometrically representing the entirety of the physical and spiritual universe in perfect mathematical equilibrium.
That makes so much sense. You're basically building a fortress of universal balance.
Precisely.
Yeah.
That is why it's used for deep energetic protection. It's the ultimate symbol of structural balance.
And then there's the Merkaba, which is described as a 3D star tetrahedron. It visually looks like an upward-pointing pyramid intersecting with a downward-pointing pyramid.
Right.
It sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie, honestly. But it's used for ascension and divine light.
The Merkaba is deeply tied to the concept of the human light body. The upward-pointing tetrahedron represents masculine energy reaching toward the heavens, while the downward-pointing one represents feminine energy connecting to the earth.
So it's about joining those forces.
Exactly. When they interlock, they create a highly active, spinning energy field. You would use a Merkaba grid base when you're focusing on deep spiritual connection or transformation, rather than, say, material manifestation.
Okay, so we have the architectural blueprints, we have our sacred geometry. Let's talk about the physical stones that actually populate these blueprints.
The anatomy of the grid itself.
Yeah, the anatomy. I'm looking at this hierarchy of components. Center stones, amplifying crystals, supporting stones. And I have to be honest,
Yeah.
it sounds a little bit like a metaphysical multi-level marketing structure for rocks.
That is a very fair critique.
Right. Like, what actually physically separates an amplifier from a supporter? Is the center stone essentially the CEO of the grid, just delegating tasks to the supporting stones? Why are they assigned these different corporate roles?
The corporate hierarchy analogy isn't too far off, actually, though I prefer to think of it through the lens of physics again. Think of a tuning fork.
Okay, a tuning fork.
If you strike an A-note tuning fork in a room filled with pianos, guitars, and violins, only the A strings on those instruments will begin to vibrate in response.
Because of resonance.
Yes. The center stone, also called the master crystal, is your primary tuning fork. It's its dead center in the geometry. It's usually the largest stone, and its sole physical and energetic job is to hold the primary frequency of the grid. It anchors the core intention.
So the center stone dictates the frequency and forces the rest of the board to align with its specific note.
Precisely. The supporting stones are then arranged radially around the center, following the intersections of the geometric pattern.
And those are usually smaller.
Yeah, these are often smaller, tumbled stones. Their mineral properties are chosen specifically to complement and flesh out the primary frequency. They add the harmonic chords to the center stone's melody, if we go back to the music analogy.
Right.
But your question about the amplifying crystals is key. What makes an amplifier different? It comes down to shape. Amplifying crystals are almost always quartz points, obelisks, or towers.
So it's the physical point that makes the difference. It's not just the type of rock, it's the actual shape of it.
Exactly. Energy travels. The physical point of a quartz crystal acts as a highly efficient directional conduit. You place these amplifying crystals in the outer rings of the geometry, pointing outward.
To broadcast the signal?
Yes. They gather the synthesized resonance from the center stone and the supporting stones, compress it, and channel it forcefully outward into the surrounding environment. They are the pathways that broadcast the grid's intention into the room. And to ensure this entire network functions smoothly, you need a stable foundation, which brings us to the grid base itself and the accompanying tools for cleansing.
Right, and sourcing these specific components is crucial because if your geometry is warped, the energy flow is warped.
Exactly.
The material explicitly highlights a curated resource called Crystals by Rob. It's pointed out as a really reliable place to find these exact geometric grid boards, like precisely laser-cut Flower of Life or Metatron's cube bases.
Which is very helpful.
Yeah, along with high-quality center stones, quartz points, and the intention tools needed for the practice. It really underscores that you need a solid, mathematically accurate foundation to lay these stones on.
Having an accurately proportioned base simplifies the process immensely. It removes the guesswork. You aren't trying to eyeball a perfect star tetrahedron on a bare table. The geometry is physically guiding your placement.
So we have a perfectly constructed network of stones, but having a beautiful structure doesn't mean anything is actually happening.
No, not at all.
A fully populated grid sitting on a coffee table is basically just decoration until you give it a job to do. There is a very specific protocol for transitioning from just setting up rocks to energetically turning them on. The spark, so to speak.
This is the activation phase, and it requires a complete shift in how you interact with the materials. Creating a crystal grid must be approached as a ritual of mindful intention.
You can't just be distracted.
No, you can't just hurriedly place the stones while, listening to the TV and expect profound results. The process begins before you even touch the stones, by sitting quietly and formulating a clear, singular, positive statement.
You have to define the A note for that tuning fork.
Exactly. For example, instead of a vague desire like, I want less stress, you formulate an active intention like, I open my heart to deep peace and compassion.
But before you place the master crystal to anchor that thought, there is a strict prerequisite, right?
Yes.
Cleansing.
Yes. Absolutely vital.
You have to ensure absolute clarity of vibration by clearing the stones of any residual stagnant energy they might have picked up along the way.
They absorb a lot.
And you can use moonlight or sound from a singing bowl or smudging with Palo Santo. And the physics analogy holds up here too, doesn't it? Like sound waves or smoke physically interact with the space around the stones.
They do. They break up any stagnant acoustic or energetic buildup. If you skip this, you're building a foundation on muddy ground.
Right.
Cleansing resets the stones to their base frequency. Once cleansed, and with your intention firmly held in your mind, you place the center stone. Then, you deliberately arrange the supporting stones and amplifying crystals outward, honoring the symmetry of the geometry.
Okay, the setup is done.
But the final, most crucial step, the actual activation, requires physical movement. You use a clear quartz point, a dedicated wand, or even just your index finger to physically trace the invisible lines connecting each stone.
Literally connecting the dots.
Literally connecting the dots across the sacred geometry, visualizing your stated intention flowing like a current through the entire grid.
Here's where it gets really interesting. When you picture tracing those connecting lines from stone to stone, imagine you are physically wiring a circuit board.
Oh, that's a great way to visualize it.
You are deliberately laying down the conductive paths for the electricity to flow. And the common mistakes outlined in this framework fit perfectly with that circuit board analogy.
They really do.
For instance, having a misaligned or a contradictory intention is like having a faulty power source. The electricity stutters. But the warning that really stood out to me was against overcrowded grids.
It is the most common pitfall for beginners, without a doubt. The instinct is always that more is better.
Right.
Like if 4 rose quartz stones bring love, then 20 rose quartz stones must be an overwhelming amount of love, right?
More rocks, more power.
Exactly. But crowding the board disrupts the mathematical symmetry of the sacred geometry, and more importantly, it dilutes the energy flow.
Exactly. If you solder too many random components onto a delicate circuit board, what happens? You blow a fuse. The current scatters, the pathways get blocked, and you just short-circuit the entire system. Your intention gets completely lost in a vibrational traffic jam.
That is a perfect translation of the mechanics at play. It brings us to a foundational concept in this practice. Intention as energy. Human thoughts, sustained focus, and deep emotional resonance. They aren't just passive daydreams.
They have weight.
They carry real, tangible, energetic weight. When you pair that highly focused mental energy with the inherent frequencies of the crystals, your intention is literally being broadcasted into the grid. It acts as the electrical current.
Wow.
You have to treat the grid as a living energy system. It is not a static object you observe. It requires your active, energetic participation.
It's a profound collaboration. And what's great is that we are given very practical recipes for this collaboration. Let's look at some real-world applications.
Let's do it.
If you are building a healing grid, say you want to restore balance to your mind and body after a massive burnout, the framework recommends combining amethyst for spiritual calm, clear quartz as the master healer, rose quartz for gentle emotional support, and lepidolite.
Which naturally contains lithium, actually.
Oh, really? So it physically soothes anxiety.
Yeah.
And you arrange these while visualizing a restorative energy dissolving blockages.
Yes. Notice how those stones share a lighter, more ethereal frequency. In contrast, if you are building a protection grid to shield your home or workspace from negativity, you pivot to heavily grounding, dense stones.
Like the darker ones.
Right. You would use black tourmaline, which acts almost like an energetic sponge absorbing negative frequencies, alongside obsidian and smoky quartz. The intention shifts to visualizing an impenetrable protective barrier forming around your physical space.
Then there is the love grid, which is aimed at radically opening the heart chakra. For that, you pull in rose quartz, rhodochrosite, and kunzite stones that resonate with warmth and emotional vulnerability.
Beautiful stones for that.
And finally, an abundance grid for manifesting prosperity and focus in your career. That utilizes the bright kinetic energy of citrine alongside green aventurine and the metallic structured weight of pyrite.
Pyrite is fantastic for abundance.
But, you don't just build these grids and leave them to collect dust for 6 months. You have to maintain that circuit board. And the way you do that is by syncing it with natural cosmic cycles, specifically the moon.
The integration of lunar cycles is vital for maintaining the grid's resonance over time. The gravitational and energetic pull of the moon naturally amplifies our intentions in different ways depending on its phase.
Makes sense.
The new moon is a period of dark, fertile potential. It is the ideal time for setting up a brand new grid focused on manifestation and starting fresh projects. As the moon transitions into the waxing phase, getting larger in the sky, its energy supports growth, expansion, and the building of momentum toward your goal.
And then you hit the full moon, which is the peak of the cycle.
The absolute peak.
It is incredibly powerful for expressing gratitude, acknowledging completion, and releasing things that no longer serve you. It's like putting your physical device on a natural cosmic charging schedule, so the battery never runs flat.
I love that analogy.
You are constantly plugging your personal intentions back into the largest, most consistent power source available. And then, as the moon shrinks during the waning phase, you use that energy for clearing, letting go of blockages, and cleaning your stones.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, what this practice is really teaching is how to elevate your personal goals from a one-time chore. Like a New Year's resolution you check off a list and completely forget about, into a continuous, evolving conversation with the universe.
It keeps you engaged.
Exactly. Using advanced techniques like holding a pendulum over the stones to check if the energetic pathways are clear, or stretching a tuning fork near the board so the sound waves literally vibrate the crystals. It keeps you actively engaged. It forces you to return to your intention day after day, keeping that living energy system alive.
So what does this all mean? To summarize the journey we've taken today, crystal grids are infinitely more profound than a social media aesthetic.
Without a doubt.
According to the mechanics we've unpacked, they are an accessible, highly customizable method for merging your personal, focused intention with the vibrational frequencies of the Earth's minerals. And it is all structured through the mathematical perfection of sacred geometry to prevent your energy from scattering.
Exactly.
Whether you are building a simple grounding grid for daily protection in your office, or a complex, multi-layered Merkaba grid for deep spiritual ascension, you are essentially creating a physical, unmoving anchor for your own attention.
It is a remarkable synthesis of mind and matter. But as we step back and look at all these intricate components, the quartz points channeling energy, the precise flower of life bases, the rigorous lunar charging schedules, this raises an important question. A final thought I think we all need to sit with. If our focused intention, our literal, concentrated thought forms, carry the electrical current that activates these stones, Do crystal grids work purely because of the inherent piezoelectric frequencies vibrating within the Earth's minerals?
That's the big debate.
Or is the sacred geometry, the precise placement of the stones, and the highly focused ritual of activation actually a brilliant ancient psychological tool designed to hack our own subconscious?
Wow.
Perhaps the grid itself is simply a beautiful, complex mirror reflecting the immense, untapped power of our own minds right back to us.
That is something to think about. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. As you move through the rest of your day, we encourage you to approach your next intention, whether you're carefully laying down a center stone on a geometric board or just taking a quiet, deliberate breath before a chaotic meeting as a focused conversation with the universe. Until next time.